So we might set up a 10 gig file and start extracting that, see if their logs pick it up. The other thing is it going to be a black box test where I know nothing at all about the system? So this is where I do a full reconnaissance and fingerprint of the system. So I would start looking at your company's website. From the company's website, I'll see if there's any contact details, if there's any known staff members. So if you've got, here's the team, I then look at those and have a look at the social media accounts, and then I start thinking about what about your WHOIS records for public IP addresses, what services do you have? I would go have a look at Shodan to see if I can see you listed there, and those sort of things. Whereas white box is where you share some of the details about that. It might be that we want you to compromise this branch, see if you can get access to it. These are the IP addresses. This is some of the software or some of the equipment that might be there. And so we then are honed in on just doing that sort of attack. From a legal point of view, in most countries, it is illegal to access someone else's computer system without their prior permission. So if you're going to start learning how to do this, do not, I stress, do not practice on someone else's equipment without their permission first. Okay? Because you might find you getting into a little bit of trouble over that. There are different ways of making sure that your actions are legal. There's some terminology, black hats, white hats, and grey hats. Black hats, they don't care. They just want to get access. So usually people that are just starting out and they're learning and experimenting probably start off as black hats. White hats is they get permission before they do anything. Now there is a fine line where there's now, anyone heard of bug hunting? So bug hunting where professionals or people make money from finding vulnerabilities in systems and notifying those vendors or those companies about that. And you can get quite a lot of money from that. And then finally, there is a combination of these two called a grey hat. A good example of this is in Europe. Anyone know about MikroTik devices? Yeah, someone asked about it yesterday. So MikroTik was well known for lots of vulnerabilities, especially with the Winbox being publicly available. That can cause you some issues. In Europe, there was a lot of DDoS attacks originating from these MikroTik devices. So this grey hat hacker, without permission from the network people, he went and fixed 20,000 MikroTik devices, removed the malware or the bot, then he applied the patches, and then he left a message on the MikroTik saying, I've gone in, I've removed your bot, and I've patched your system for you. It benefited the whole internet because now there's 20,000 less devices that could be used for DDoS attacks or acting as bots or being able to spread malicious software. The disadvantage was he did it without permission. So is that good or bad? It's bad because he did it without permission. It's good because of his intent, but it's a hard thing. It's no right or wrong. And that's the problem when you do pen testing. There's been some pen testers in the United States. They were legally contracted by the government to go pen test some courthouses. They went and did the physical access to the courthouse, and they got caught by the local sheriff. The problem was that the government didn't have permission to allow them to go into that courthouse. And so they end up going to jail, even though they were legally contracted and they thought they were covered by the agreement. That was a bit of a shock to the system. Once you've done your pen test, this is what most pen testers hate about doing a pen test, is writing a report. So you basically have to say, this is what I did, this is what I just saw, and this is, in some cases, how you can fix it. So depending on the contract, you sometimes don't tell them how to fix it. You just say, this is what I tried, this is what I was able to get access to, here's your report. And so the internal team will then need to go, oh, I need to apply this patch, or I need to go harden this port, or something like that. If you're interested, you can go open up this link here for some sample reports. They're starting to get a bit out of date. Or you can use your friendly neighborhood local large language model, your AI. They are very good at writing reports now. I don't know why, but anyway. So you could start with a prompt saying, using this URL, can you index all the reports here and show me what would be a sample report I could use as a template, something like that. If you have third-party tools, so there's things like Rapid7 that allow you to, or Tenable, that allow you to basically pretend to do a pen test against your system. But the idea is that you do regular testing to hopefully figure out what systems are weak or still open. You use your vulnerability assessments on a regular basis to make sure that your systems are up to date. And then you can make sure that you are complying to either your legal requirements or a baseline that you may have set. A pen test repeated after you've done the remediation. Some of the companies in Australia, it's very disheartening in regards to, it's not so much now, they're starting to action some of the items, but earlier on, you would go and say, this is what I found, and then they'll contract you to come back in 12 months later, and you find exactly the same, which is good because you just reprint the same report, change the date, and there you go. But no, it's not a good idea. More and more companies, though, are starting to take notice and are required to actually start proving they're doing some actions against it. Now, I sort of spoke about this briefly when I said the MITRE attack framework. This is essentially what happens during an attack lifecycle. Before I'm able to get access to your network, I need to know what devices you have. I need to know the people that may be working at that organization. And so I will do some sort of reconnaissance, fingerprinting. And I've said some examples. I'd go look at your company website. I would go look at Shodan. I would look at APNIC's website to see who is records you have, to get an idea of your IP addresses, your autonomous system numbers, your social media accounts for the staff that may work there, and create a list of what is possible to get access to. Then I come up with some way of compromising your system, and once I've got inside your system, I try to establish a foothold. And then we move around your network until we achieve our goal that we want. What we're focusing on at the moment for our simple Nmap scan is this part here. We're not actually going to compromise anything. Reiterating the legal requirements, do not use these techniques against someone else's network that you don't have permission to do that. You do have permission to actually do this against the lab environment on the APNIC Academy. In the past, we would give you a couple of VMware VMs that you could use, but the Academy has those running there. There's essentially, inside that Academy lab, there's going to be 3 machines, your Kali Linux machine and 2 vulnerable machines, a Windows machine and a Linux vulnerable machine. And then you'll be able to get access to it that way. So our first task is to get an idea of what's available there. So we're going to use this network mapper tool, and this is part of the initial reconnaissance to say, hey, what's out there? Here's a range of IP addresses. See which hosts are up on that range. In its simplest format, we use the nmap command. The type of scan, so -S is the type of scan, and S is the scan that we want to do. In this case, it's a TCP SYN. So depending on the nmap scan that you are going to do, it can be very fast or very slow. By default, nmap is a very noisy tool and usually not the best one for pen testing because it leaves so many or triggers so many alerts in intrusion detection systems. So what you can do to try and make it a little bit quicker is that instead of doing the three-way handshake, you can say only do one part of it. If I'm able to get to that, then I can tell that that host is up. And that's what this is doing here. It's very quick and fast, but it's not as stealthy anymore. It used to be very stealthy because a lot of intrusion detection systems relied on that three-way handshake to complete, whereas now it's able to detect when it isn't completed. What we can also do is a very verbose scan, and then we can save the information to a file. So output -O is enable OS detection. So we can start getting more details. If we want to do a UDP one, we can do that, and we can specify the ports that we want to scan as well. So what we're going to do is start the pen testing lab. So make sure you are logged into the Academy because it's been 30 minutes. For those who need the password again, this is the password. And the lab ID up here, 107137. And it's dropped off the code up here, so that's a bit of an issue again. I'm just going to click on login since it's not found it, and I'll fix it soon once I log in. So I'm just opening up the lab. So lab 107137. Let's launch the lab and go yes. So what this is going to do is go and build out our virtual environment. So hopefully is everyone able to launch that. And we're going to start with doing the Nmap scan. So do some reconnaissance of our system. Has anyone used Kali before? Kali Linux? Anyone used Nmap? Yeah. Nmap is a very powerful tool. You can do a lot with it. Yeah. I'm not sure why it takes so long because it's 3 virtual machines, but it's the way that they've built the lab environment. I think they've got something there. It shouldn't have a username, but that means it didn't start properly, but we can... So with the username, to get access to the username, you click on the Resources tab, and it's going to show you here what the username is. By default, when you use Kali Linux, the default username is root, and then the password, the default password, is root in reverse. So we've got root, and then we can see here how it's just reversed, TOOR. And you click on sign in. Metasploitable 2 is our Linux system. Metasploitable 3 is our Windows system. And you can access them if you want, but that's going to wreck the fun of trying to get into it using Kali. Once you've started the lab environment, I'm just going to make my terminal window a little bit bigger. I have no idea what's going wrong with my system. I'm just going to make my font size a little bit bigger. I'll just do up to 14. Now my only problem is I've got to make this full screen because I can't see the OK button. Let's make it smaller. Let's try again. I'll try to make that a little bit bigger. Oh, I'll leave it at that. That should do it. So the first thing that we're going to do is confirm that we have Nmap installed. So I'm just going to use a command called which, and that will hopefully look for the command Nmap and show me whether it is installed. Then I'm going to see what version of Nmap is installed. In this case, the -v is 7.70. And we can use the help command, or there's a wiki page that you can go to, but it gives us quite a lot of information. So we can scan IPv6 addresses, we can enable OS detection, and it's showing some examples here. as I mentioned already, the simplest scan is the... Oh, missed my dash. So dash S is for scan, and then the capital letter next to it is the type of scan. So S is for SYN, T is for TCP, so the three-way handshake and so on. And then the system that we want to scan in this case is 192.168, if I get it right, .30.102. And that should be our Metasploitable 2 Linux system. I press enter, and this is going to try and connect to that system, and it didn't take long at all, and it's saying it's got one host up. Very slow. It's not accepting my mouse click. So it's saying there's one host up, but then these are the ports that we've got open. So port 25. What's port 25? SMTP, what's that mean? The port is open, but what is SMTP? That's SMNP. So what's SMTP? Traffic protocol? Simple mail transfer protocol, yes. Have you had a chocolate today? You haven't? So that means there's a mail server on there. We can see port 80. Everyone knows what port 80 is. That's a web server, isn't it? Yep. We can see that it's got a whole heap of databases on there. So 3306 is MySQL. It's got VNC. What's VNC mean? Sort of like a remote access, isn't it? So we've Nmap, we've pointed it at an IP address, and we're able to find these open ports, and based on this reconnaissance, we can now start thinking, oh, there's these services that are running. Are there vulnerabilities for that? Does it tell me the versions? No. Does it tell me the operating system? I'm just going to scroll that back up again, if it allows me to. So it really doesn't tell me much about the operating system, just that these ports are open. Everyone see that? So what we can do is that we can ask it to go and do a more detailed scan. So that's what this -S, V for verbose, -O for operating system. So if you arrow up, that allows you to bring up that pass command. Now the only other thing that I'm going to do is there's a -N that you can add, which means don't do a DNS resolution for that. So I'm going to get rid of the capital S, replace that with V. Oh. Maybe I won't. V -N, the N for no DNS resolution, and dash capital O for operating system. This takes a lot longer because it's going to go into a lot more detail and do a lot of other back-end scanning operations to try and extract more details. Now we can see here that it's extracted, that it thinks it's a Linux operating system. It's also found the name of the device. The version of the Linux operating system is here. And then if we look at the details about the open ports, we can now start seeing the software version that Nmap thinks it is. So for example, port 2121 is running FTP, but it's Pro FTP version 1.3.1. I haven't logged into that system yet. Nmap is basically using different techniques that they know about operating systems and applications and using the ping command to try and extract that information or trying to get it to communicate and send header information. This is something that is built into a lot of protocols. To start a conversation, they need to know version types and things like that. So this is not unusual activity as such. It's using what is called common behavior. Has everyone been able to do that and get the versions of the software? Yeah? By default, if you have a look at the protocol, notice that most of them are TCP. Let's see if I can make my screen a bit bigger. It just went back. See what I mean? It's doing weird things. So you can see here, these are all the open ports. It's only showing the TCP protocol by default. So you actually have to tell it to do a UDP scan as well to look at other open ports. And that's what this is doing here. So I'm just going to do that. It's a lot slower. So that's why I'm specifying only scan ports 50 to port 170 for this system. And if I press enter, it's going to do similar process as before, but only for UDP. So this will hopefully find things like the DNS, if there's DNS server listening. Now, this is something that you can do as an internal team on your resources and assets. Start scanning, because this is what a pen test may do. They will use a tool like this to try and find out what's available and what's there. I've got to do a -N to tell it not to do a DNS lookup. I'm just going to let that run. Trying to see if finally finished. So in this case here, we can see that there is a DNS listening on port 53 and some other RPC NetBUI. So NetBUI is like the Microsoft protocol for sharing files. So that's a bit of an issue in its own right. The next part of the lab is talking about how you can output it to an external file. And this is what you would do as a pen test, because the more times you run the nmap command, the more likely you will be discovered. So you try to run it once and save the information to a file, and then you look at that file for the results. And that's what this is doing up here. The other thing that you can do as an internal team, you can run nmap today. Tomorrow, go fix what you see as open ports that you don't want to be open anymore. And then next week, you run nmap again to see that the ports are now closed off and you can't get access to them. So you can do a comparison of the files, and that's what this section is referring to here. What I do want to show you is some of the other commands that you can run. So nmap actually comes with a whole heap of scripts. There's scripts for doing penetration testing against a web server, so HTTP. There's scripts for doing penetration testing against Microsoft shares, so Samba, the SMB shares. So that's what we're doing here. We're saying, I want you to have a look at SMB enumerate scripts on port 445 and try this IP address. Now, this is a Linux-based system, so in theory, there may not be anything there. If it's a Windows-based system, you most likely will get a response. So let's try it with Linux first. And there are ports where you can see that what they've done is that it's tried to extract out from the domain controller details about the, I don't know what I did there, but let's stop. User accounts, if they're available or not. So it's been able to extract things like the user is a normal user account, but it's disabled. So I know from now I can start using this unique ID, 3002, to try and compromise the domain controller. See if that goes up. So there's another account here, 3000. There's a backup account that's disabled, and we can see different accounts that are disabled. Let's try running that same script now, but against a Windows machine. And it's a lot quicker. And against the Windows machine, I can see that they've got a admin dollar share, a C dollar share, and an IPC, Internet Printer Controller, dollar symbol. And at the moment, it's not accessible. This is one thing I don't like about Windows systems. It has these default shares enabled on all of your laptops that are running Windows at the moment. So whether you're a server or a client machine, these are usually remotely accessed. And that was in the probably around 2005. That's how a lot of systems were compromised. And a lot of the malware would exploit this. It's a lot better now. You can lock it down with your firewalls, but you should make sure you keep your firewall and your antivirus running. But this is what the Eternal Blue malware used to get into that system. Remember the packet capture that we looked at this morning using Suricata, and it said that it was that double pulsar Eternal Blue WannaCry. It got access to the systems using these default shares and then exploited that. If you want to be lazy and you don't mind being detected, you can use the default scripts, and that's going to run all the different types of categories of scripts related to what you may want to enumerate from a system. And this is going against a Windows system. I keep forgetting to put in the -n so I don't do the DNS, but it's just one step that you want to try and do. So this one will take a little while. How's everyone going? Been able to start doing this hand map? You can't get access. Why didn't you grab my attention? So when it's like that, just do a refresh, because you may have timed out from the login point of view. Actually, it looks like we've got an internet problem. Oh, someone kicked the power out. Oh, well done. This is where you have redundancy. Redundancy is great until it isn't there. So I bet we're not going to have internet connectivity. I wonder who did that. Well, the server's still running. So we need to wait for the... Yeah, we were just talking about that. No, someone kicked the power out. Yeah. Oh, I don't know, but it looks like it's powered down here to the server. Well, while that's starting up, I'm going to go back to the slide deck then. Oh, maybe it's back. I'll let that connect. We're back. But I need to get out of full screen anyway, so. So what we've done is we've been able to do a scan of the network, find out the operating system, find out about the software that's installed and the open ports. Then we're able to do a scan of the UDP protocol. This is how you would save it to a file. In this case, you got X for XML. And then you can do a comparison using NDiff in Linux, or you can just use Word, and you can do a comparison of text files that way as well. And this is what it would look like. It will say NDiff, nmap1, nmap2. We can see that in this case it's removed port 80 and it's been moved to port 8088. There is another tool which we haven't got installed called Sparta, and this is basically a vulnerability assessment tool that you can run against Nmap. So it's basically a graphical user interface for Nmap. For Windows, if you don't use Nmap, they have a tool called ZenMap that allows you to run a GUI to do similar things to this. The disadvantage on Windows, though, is that a lot of the antivirus see it as a virus, and they'll quarantine it once you download it. To enumerate the SMB, which we were just starting to do, we ran the Nmap, said the script to run it against, and then we said go run all the default scripts against the Windows machine. And then we can also enumerate information about the NetBIOS protocol. So we can see here with the default scripts, we got a lot more detail. We got things about what version of operating system it is, what is the computer name, what group the computer is of, what sort of security it has, and a little bit of details there. And then finally, if we run the enum for Linux 192.168.30.103. Let's see what we get. And we get things about whether there's a printer connected, what sort of membership they have, which user accounts are being accessed. And it's got some errors here, but basically we pull out the information similar to what we did with the default, and we also get the MAC address, the work group, a listing of known usernames that we can have a look at, and by default they've used blank password, blank username to get access to this stuff. Any questions about that? So that's using Nmap to do some more reconnaissance on a network. And this is aimed at Linux machines and at Windows machines. But most of you said during the first day survey that you were network engineers. True? Yeah. So someone mentioned it already, SNMP. What is that? Simple Network Management Protocol. Why would you use that in your network? Yeah, so being able to get details about the device and be able to push out configs to the device as well, or monitor. When you need to do monitoring of your devices, make sure that they're up, monitoring the temperature, CPU usage, and so on like that. So from a reconnaissance point of view, SNMP is invaluable for me to find out what sort of devices you have on your network. True? So there is tools inside Kali that allow you to do enumeration of SNMP. We looked at Wireshark yesterday for packet captures, and I got you to, at the start, just start listening to traffic on the Wi-Fi. But that's what I would do when I get access to a network. I would start a packet capture and start looking for any sort of SNMP traffic. So I can then try and pull out the string. Or I can use a tool like SNMP Walk. So what we're going to do in this next part is we're going to I might just go full screen again because it just gives me a little bit more room to play. We're going to change to a directory, and this is a whole heap of files that have some common passwords in it. In regards to penetration testing, the more you do, the more refined your password list becomes, because you've been able to find which ones work, which ones don't. Most cases, these are just generic. So there'll be a lot of misses when you use these files, so you do a lot more processing than what you need to. Try doing a refresh of the page. Do you have access to the monitoring of virtual machines? In the academy, sometimes physics have access. Yeah. So what needs to happen is that session may be locked open, and so you need to end it on the back end. I don't have access, so I'm not making it start. So it's stuck in the launch. It's not a limitation, it's more that because we had the dropout, it's probably lost that. It started the initial connection and it's just come little time out. So 1, 2. How many other people are stuck on loading? About 6 people? Okay, I'll send a message to APNIC and see if they can do something. So for those with the spinning wheel, I've just sent a message to APNIC to see if they can check the back end and maybe reset that. The other thing is, oh, okay, you're logging back in again. No. Okay. So we're going to use some other software now to focus on the network side of things. So we looked at detecting endpoint devices. Now we're looking at detecting network devices or devices that use SNMP. In this lab, we don't actually have a real router, but we'll pretend to do that. So inside this listing of directory is a whole heap of text files, and in those text files are some default passwords. So we can see here some default passwords for services, default user pass for unhash, telnet backdoor, iDRAC default usernames, Unix passwords, web server, SNMP default passwords, and default short passwords. So we can have a look at one of these files. And if we do a less, we can see all it is just one word per line as our password list. You can create your own if you want, which you may have to because you may not use English as your main language, so therefore your password list would be completely different. So just think about that. That can save you from a lot of the Western hackers. So if we want to use this password list and try and access a device using that as our SNMP string, there is a tool called 161. And it basically takes that password list and it just tries that as my SNMP string command to connect to an IP address. So we've got SNMP running on our local machine, so that's why I'm using 127.0.0.1. And if I press enter, it's going to try every one of those. In this case, it wasn't a success. So there was 120 communities. So in that file, there was 120 words. I could have thousands of words and tell it to go run that list. This is what's referred to sometimes as a dictionary attack. I'm using a combination of words that I've created from somewhere. I'm not going to show you today, but there is a tool that will look at a company's website and it will take keywords from the company website and create a password list from that. I think it's called seatbelt. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. Another tool that's not there. I haven't documented it. I've just used it a few times because it comes in handy. You'll be surprised how many people use passwords from the company website, looking at the text and go, oh yeah, I'll use that. And So we didn't have success against our local machine, so we're now going to do exactly the same, but instead of looking at our local machine, we're pointing it at the Linux machine to see if we can get any SNMP information. And if we're lucky, it may work, it may not. In this case, it didn't work. So this means I need to get a different list or start experimenting. And that's essentially what you do with your penetration testing. It's trial and error. I'm going to create a combination of words or a combination of lists, or I'll do a brute force where I say, I'm going to try A. I'm going to try AA, then try triple A, quad A, and then I'll go AB, AC, AD, and so on. And they can be very time consuming, which is one of the worst things about the pen test, or one of the worst things, is that you have a time constraint. Usually pen tests take 1 week or 2 weeks. And if you spend the majority of your time trying to guess the password, that's a problem. So what we're going to do is run a little shell command, and we've now tried to use that. The community string is now harder to try and get into it. We should have got oh, we didn't get the string, so I've made it harder. Let's try and make it simple then. It should have been in there, unless someone's modified it. So I've just made sure that it is easy. Let's see if it worked that time. Let's make it harder then. And I pointed at the wrong host, so let's go against 127. Now this time, even though we've made it a combination of alphanumeric characters, you can see here that it's been able to discover the password. Can anyone see or tell me what that password is? Private. It's using leet speak, which is PR number 1, V number 4, T number 3. So that word is actually in that password list. So now that I've got your SNMP community string, I can now start reading information. Whether it's read-only, it doesn't matter. Read-only is still going to give me some information about your IP address, your network topology, and so on. What interfaces you have in this device. And then once I've got the password, I use this SNMP check to make sure I can connect to the system. And it's going to go off and try and connect. And we can see here it was successful. It's saying trying to connect using this community string, and the host IP is this. I'm being able to pull out some basic information about the system, who the contact, the location, uptime, and system date. So that now validates that that's the correct community string to get access to that system. Once I've got that, I can use another tool called SMP Walk. And this essentially goes through the MIB and pulls out all sorts of information from the system. So this is all part of that initial enumeration or reconnaissance. So finding out as much detail about your devices and your network as possible using tools. Now, these tools mean that you need some sort of connectivity and you need to touch the third-party system. So there's still the legal requirements that you need permission to do all this. Any questions? Has the lab come back up yet? For those people who try and do it. You guys are powering on. So how's everyone going, apart from the ones that can't get access to the lab? Have you gotten access or? Not yet, okay. Still, oh yeah, still, yeah, okay. See that yellow? That would be why. That would be one reason. So you need to enable options.
Yeah, already.
You already,
Yes.
okay.
And I have to refresh the page, but
It's saying
no, it's Mozilla.
that, yeah, so under options, you've got to allow the pop-up. Now we need to load the,
I have a question. How can we prevent when we know
if you want to ask. Afan, you're going to have to translate.
Oke, oke. Oh, gimana Kak? Mau tanya pertanyaan apa? Hah? Iya, bisa. Iya. Oh, menyeken network kita. Oh, kalau, iya jadi. Nah, jadi kalau, saya coba jalan pakai bahasa Indonesia ya. Jadi kalau kita misalnya, kita punya server, ini kan kita mencoba istilahnya kalau tanda kutip kita itu kayak kita punya rumah, tiba-tiba ada orang datang ketok-ketok pintu rumah kita kan, halo, halo. Habis itu jendela kita diketuk, habis itu kita ke pintu sebelah samping diketuk-ketuk lagi. Ini apa sih orang? Tapi dia belum masuk gitu. Jadi kalau solusinya adalah kita perkecil jumlah services yang ada di server itu. Jadi kalau misalnya kita punya server yang tadi contohnya di sini kan server yang dia dikonfigur dengan sekian macam aplikasi ada di situ. Ada mail server, ada web server. Kan tadi kan ada kan yang ditunjukkan tadi. Can I use this one from it? Oh, mana tadi? So kita coba yang SNMP. Bentar, kita mundur sedikit. Kita coba yang ini tadi Kak. Yang Nmap, yang SV dan O coba ya. Nah, jadi ini istilahnya ini cara yang orang pertama lakukan, dan kalau kita punya server di internet memang kita akan dibeginikan. Ini sudah jadi lazimnya tuh seperti itu. Jadi caranya agar kita tidak istilahnya ini belum diapa-apakan, hanya orang dicoba lihat apa yang sudah kita buka. Jadi misalnya kalau pertama adalah kalau ini server ini sebenarnya server yang kita jadikan server untuk testing. Tapi kalau ini bisa ya. Nah kalau kita punya server yang benar di internet, kita biasanya hanya spesifikasi untuk satu pekerjaan aja. Misalnya kita jadikan web server yang kita buka hanya port 80 atau misal port 443 aja. Kita nggak buka port lain. Atau misalnya kalau kita buka port lain, maka port itu kita berikan namanya ACL. ACL itu dia hanya boleh diakses dari IP address source IP dari network tertentu, misal dari network internal aja gitu. Nah, jadi kalau misalnya kayak gini, solusinya adalah di antara si klien ini, klien siapa namanya Nmap ini, orang akan mencoba men-scan dengan server kita, dia harus ada pelindungnya, itu namanya firewall. Kalau di antara IP address ini, antara kali Linux dan si server ini ada firewall, firewall itu dia akan memblok. Kita konfigur agar firewall hanya mengallow port yang kita inginkan aja. Jadi kita hanya allow port 80, port 443, port 22. Sudah, nanti kalau kita Nmap lagi, ini nggak akan kelihatan semua. Selama server itu ada di belakang firewall. Jadi kalau ini ada gambarnya. Kita bayangkan seperti ini. Mungkin Bapak Ibu bisa lihat. Nah, ini kita bayangkan kita punya komputer yang jalankan Nmap tadi ya. Nmap tadi. Kita lihat komputernya terkoneksi ke jaringan, misal ke internet misalnya. Internet. Nah, dari internet kan ada gateway yang masuk ke jaringan kita. Kita punya yang namanya router. Terus kita biasanya sebelum ada server kita letakkan namanya firewall dulu. Sorry, gambar firewall tuh gambarnya gini. Nah, baru di sini ada switch data center, switch punya kita. Terus baru ini si server kita. Nah kalau misalnya kita nggak punya firewall di sini, si klien Nmap ini dia ketika dia membaca melakukan scan tadi, dia kan kebaca semua. Port apa yang terbuka di situ. Jadi ketika di scan kita kan bisa lihat kan muncul port macam-macam. Tapi kalau di sini yang kita lakukan biasanya adalah kita pasang dua-duanya. Yang pertama di firewallnya kita lakukan yang namanya kita buat pasang namanya ACL. Kita hanya open port yang dipakai untuk keperluannya si server ini. Misalnya kalau servernya kita pakai hanya untuk dibuka di internet sebagai web server aja, kita hanya allow port TCP port 443 misalnya, kita nggak allow port 80 misalnya, atau misalnya ya buat pantas-pantasan aja port 80, TCP port 80, TCP port 443 kita konfigur di firewallnya. Jadi nanti kalau misalnya kita scan, yang tembus akan terlihat di scannya hanya port 80 443 aja. Jadi itu yang pertama. Yang kedua, kalau dari sisi server sendiri, kita konfigur agar dia hanya running aplikasi yang khusus buat dia aja. Misalnya kalau web server, kita punya contoh web server misalnya, Bapak Ibu pakai HTTPD misalnya Apache, TTPD atau misalnya Nginx misalnya, yang cukup umum gitu kan. Nah, Bapak hanya allow ini aja, aplikasi lain yang dijalanin. Terus yang kedua juga bisa dipasang juga di sini, juga dipasang packet filter juga bisa juga. Ada beberapa aplikasi packet filter di untuk desktop misalnya. Kalau di Linux namanya UFW, UFW. Itu firewall juga. Kalau ada namanya firewall di. Kalau di Linux ada macam-macam lah. Ini sama juga. Jadi kita pasang firewall sebagai perangkat jaringan, atau ada firewall yang kita pasang sebagai konfigurasi software di servernya itu sendiri. Jadi kalau dengan kayak gitu kita bisa bikin orang kalau mau scan hanya tahu dia hanya port 80-nya aja. Tapi orang misalnya tanya, loh nanti kalau saya mau meremote-nya kan saya perlu SSH misalnya, port 22. Jadi kalau kita mau remote port SSH port 22, kita bisa bikin bahwa misal di sini ada jaringan misalnya NOC-nya misalnya. Ada NOC-nya, ada subnet NOC-nya. Dia hanya allow bahwa dia bisa diakses port TCP, atau misalnya dia allow di sini jalankan TCP port 22, tapi dia hanya pastikan bahwa IP address source address-nya hanya network itu aja, network lokal aja, nggak boleh dari luar. Jadi caranya gitu Kak, mungkin bisa nanti mudah-mudahan bisa memperjelas. Kira-kira ada kebayang lagi Pak? Jadi kalau ini kita melihatnya hanya dari sisi kita sebagai orang yang melakukan vulnerability assessment. Jadi nama resminya vulnerability assessment, nama resminya gitu. Tapi kalau istilahnya kita mau memproteksi agar kita nggak bisa melihat, kita harus pasang namanya ACL di firewall dan konfigurasi di servernya sendiri. Jadi servernya bukan kita semua aplikasi open source kita install di server. Jadi kita pasang yang perlu-perlu aja. Itu Kak kira-kira. So maybe.
So you're talking about using the firewall to stop this. Do some research on fire proxy. That just bypasses all that. So fire proxy allows me to do an Nmap scan through AWS, and every time I send a packet to your endpoint devices, it spins up a brand new machine, a container with a brand new IP address, and then sends the packet. So if you've got rate limiting or policing or anything like that, I can then change the way I do my scan so it won't alert you to the scan happening because you've got thousands of IP addresses just touching your network. So a bit of a problem, that one. So I'm sorry with the issue with the labs environment. Maybe you try and do it tomorrow when they've said, log out, log back in, click on the button, try a different browser. It's all your fault. No, it's not. It's so, yeah, the only other thing I could suggest is that you use someone else's machine that is working to prove that it's your account and not the browser, because they're saying, oh, it's the browser or the computer. So the On Demand is the name of the company, and they have so much capacity in the data center, but they will over-provision. So even if they've reached their capacity, they'll still allow you to over-provision. What happens is that it just gets slower, a lot slower. So it could be the case that's the case. In theory, they should be submitting a support ticket to On Demand, but I don't know. But again, APNIC's got access to those systems. I don't, so I can't confirm or deny, unfortunately. So we got to the point where we've done the reconnaissance. We've been able to find out information about a Windows machine, a Linux machine, and using SNMP to get information. That is where I would suggest that you start with your own network, seeing what information is available if someone does get into your network. The other thing that you should be doing when you go back to your office or to your network, obviously with permission, is to make sure that your systems are up to date. One of the easiest ways of getting into a network is using out-of-date software, out-of-date systems, or vulnerable software. So being able to do the vulnerability management is very important, and being able to apply the patches on a regular basis without hopefully breaking your production network is the trick. And so that's what the next stage is, where we're going to go through and do the scan. So what we're going to do is open up our vulnerability assessment scanning tool. You can either try and find it in the applications window, or if you've still got your terminal window open, running the openvas command will allow you to then start the application. So this is going to run in the back end. Give it time to run the services. Once that responds, we then go to a web browser and we'll connect to that. So a lot of services now are going to have a web component to it. So you connect to it via that. So it's now got the openvas service running, and we're going to open up Firefox. and we're going to connect to our local host 127.0.0.1, port 9392. Someone's alarm has gone off. The username is admin. The password is password, all lowercase. This is going to take a little while to complete. So what we'll do, we'll start a scan and then we'll move on to, say, the theory, and then we'll come back either after the coffee break or hopefully it might just finish. So what we're going to do is we need to configure our targets that we want to scan. Then when we configure the targets, we're able to then select the information there. So we go to configuration, click on targets, and we've got an example that we have done already for you, just so that way it doesn't waste time. But we're going to click up here under the star to add a new target. We're going to give it a name of Metasploitable. The IP address that we want to scan is 192.168.30.102. That's going to be our Linux machine. And then the port list that we want to scan, instead of scanning all of them, we're going to just go for the OpenVAS default. So scroll down until you get to the OpenVAS default. They'll make it a little bit quicker. So if you know that in your network there's certain ports that are open, you're going to only scan for those. We then click on Create, and that's going to be our target, where we can see Metasploitable. Now that we've got a target, we go to our scans and go to Tasks, and we're going to create a new task to do the scan against that target. We can either, now this is one thing I haven't shown you, but under scans there's that purple icon. It's a bit hard to see because of the sizing here, but that's like a wizard icon. So you can create the target at the same time as doing the task creation, or it's better to have finer control because you've already got the target created. We're going to go into the star and go New Task. The new task, we're going to name that. I can't see that. Scan something. Scan task 1. We want it to be Metasploitable. Scanner OpenVAS default. That's about it we need to change. So let's jump back to the So I give it scan task 1. It's got the OpenVAS default. Scan target is Metasploitable, so everything is fine there. Click on create, and that's going to create our scan. And currently at the moment is set to new. We need to go over to our actions, and we're going to set it to start. Well, I clicked on that. And it's now requested, and it's going to start doing the scan. So we'll leave it as requested and let that run for this time. Just get out of full screen and change back to our slide deck. We're on the home run. So we've covered quite a bit in that short amount of time, even with some of the troubleshooting. So I've shown you about community strings, and we've been able to use a word list and some tools to check if the password matches a community string on a system, and then display that community string. Once we've got that community string, we're able to then check connectivity to the device, and then we can try and extract information using SNMP from that device. We then opened up OpenVAS. Now, OpenVAS has been around for a long time, this vulnerability scanner. There's been various tools. So in 1998, there was a tool called Nessus. It's now a commercial tool, and it is used for more than just vulnerability scanning. And then Nessus 2 was created and forked into OpenVAS because Tenable purchased the latest version of Nessus and turned it into a commercial product. There are some free open source material related to that, and you can go have a look if you like. We went through the web GUI, logged in, and we scheduled a target. We created a target. We then scheduled a task, and we started that task to start the vulnerability. The big advantage is that it creates some reports for you that you can then use to show your improvement of your vulnerability management. We're not going to go through Nikto. We won't have time. Let's go see. It actually can take 30 minutes. I've seen it go an hour, depending on how many people. Yeah, it's not done. So Afan asked me, how long does this take? So it comes back to how many targets you have that you're going to scan. But in this environment here, I've seen it take 30 minutes, and with this many people, it's probably going to be close to 45 minutes. So that's why I wanted to do this first before doing it at the end of the day. And so because you've got so many people doing it and the data center device may be overwhelmed, it's going to be a bit slower. On your network, if you've got the resources, you need a beefy box to be able to do the scan, and it'll be a lot quicker. But it also comes back to communication, connectivity, because essentially what it's trying to do, it's going to try and download the latest vulnerabilities, then it's going to try and scan your system for that. The issue is that this doesn't have internet connection, I don't think. Or if it does have internet connection, it's a very slow internet connection. So that's why it's taking so long. Because I haven't changed the defaults to timeout. So I've basically covered everything I needed to do. Did you want to start your DDoS talk? What's the time? 3 o'clock. What time's our break? Oh, I've timed that well. Have a break. No break. But yeah, we just need to let that run. It just takes forever. What's that? We can have a break if you want.
We can do it at 3:30.
Let's have the break at 3:30. Do you want to start the DDoS? Okay. Then we can have a break. After the break. You've only got 2 points. That's how frustrating.
It's the first generation. Okay, so I will try to finish the slide just before our coffee break. After that, we can go coffee break and continue the labs because the lab will run for some time before we get the result. So we talk about DDoS attack and countermeasure. It's like the thing is when your network goes bigger, and it is a problem facing by the ISP or by large service provider. Bigger their network, and they have lots of point of presence, and the risk of getting the DDoS is just getting bigger. So what exactly we're talking about the DDoS here is an attack against an availability of a service. So basically, a service can be like a network or a specific service such a website. We talk about the DDoS as a denial of service. It typically comes from single source, but if it's a distributed denial of service, it means the attack comes from every other side. You might think about the DDoS. It's like, say you are entrepreneur, you're opening a new restaurant. You expect everybody will come at your first opening. You locate your restaurant in the very busy road like this one in the front of us. But suddenly, when you're starting to open, there's lots of trucks with lots of great container going to front of your restaurant, try to blocking the people who are trying to go to your restaurant. So basically, you cannot. Everybody who wants to go to your restaurant cannot go to cannot go to you because of the large truck blocking your way to prevent those people to go to your restaurant. That's a thing we think about the DDoS. So we try to we talk about this is still happening even in this 2025. It's getting bigger and bigger. Even we talk a number of not only gigabit per second, or like we're talking about like terabit per second, or maybe like petabyte of second large. The larger the bandwidth you can get, so the larger the attack will come. So the impact, use the thing as a service outage, but service outage is actually it's a lot of terms. It can happen whether the service has a limited capacity, but the security team will see as a loss of availability. Is we talk about CI triad, but this A, last A on this is availability. For business leader, we talk about the financial loss, because if you have a service like ISP, payment gateway, gaming, online casinos, I don't do online casinos. We talk about the cost per hour of the downtime. You're talking about the service like when there's, I remember there was a case when something in the network happening, and one of the ISP just get something is have a route leak happening in their network. Suddenly, all of their service going down. It mentioned is the loss of the services from ISP. We talk about talking about million US dollar per hour. So it's like the number is going to get bigger, and also the not excluding brand or reputation damage. So what's can happen when you get the DDoS? The first three categories. The first one is the bandwidth exhaustion. So it's common, quite common, because if you're a large ISP, you have lots of more POP. For example, in Indonesia, we have a POP in Jakarta, we have POP in Batam near the Singapore, we have a POP in Manado, is go to the Pacific. And talking about lots of POP point of presence, and suddenly there are DDoS coming to you at all of your gateways. So it makes the your capacity bandwidth, usually bandwidth, even though they are get bigger and bigger, there's actually limitation of it. Usually ports of your network makes like 10 gigabit. 10 gigabit is quite common, but right now people start using like 100 gigabit per second for the backbone 100, or the number of 100 like n times 100 gigabit per second. But it can also be consumed if there's something happens. So basically, larger your capacity, with the easier for your DDoS to come to you. You're talking about also about connection exhaustion. It usually happen on the server that usually serve the production traffic. Usually, if you have like a public website, you will configure it to adjust it to receive to adjust it from the default configuration to the some capacity that allows them to serve the traffic. However, what DDoS is trying to do is trying to make sure your connection capacity is exhaustion. You know, in Linux world, you're talking about the number of the tables, or the number of the inodes. Means that if that number is exhausted, then your system is unable to receive traffic again. You need to be restarted. And also target exploitation. It's quite uncommon, but if there's something happen with the operating system or application vulnerabilities, some specially crafted traffic can make the system goes a crash and needs to be restarted. So on every models, on each layer of the TCP/IP models and each protocol, there can be anything that can happen to create the DDoS thing. Even in the lower layer, in the physical data link layer, you're talking about construct equipment or electrical interference. It's also happened in my time. And actually, like a couple months ago, in my place in Indonesia, in Bandung, there's an event called Pasar Seni. You mean like a art market, when lots of people coming. It like talking about thousands, maybe 4,000, 5,000 of people in the space, in like just maybe like this building complex. Lots of people coming. You cannot even go walk because everybody is full of people. At the time when it's full of people, the network capacity of the cellular, the 4G LTE, the mobile broadband just does not gonna work because it only been designed to receive only like number of the clients. So basically, if you do want to update status, send WhatsApp, to send to do the mobile payment banking, it just not gonna work. Because why? Because lots of people in the very small spaces, the capacity of the radio, the cellular will be cannot serve all of them. So basically, there's a DDoS on that specific area. The same also when you watch the football, in Jakarta, there's a stadium called Stadion Utama Senayan, Jakarta. It's a very large stadium. It consists of, can have maybe 80,000 people, maybe 80,000, I don't know. But can you imagine how to use the cellular when there's an event of, like the national football, Indonesia versus whatever, versus Thailand, or versus anything it's AFF Cup event in Jakarta. Your cell phone just not gonna work. Because why? Because the capacity of the base station cannot serve all of this the audience on the stadium. You're talking about the DDoS in the lower link of level. When you go up, there's ICMP and SYN flood. It can happen, but the biggest one are usually come from the application level attack on the DNS and NTP, because they can be reflected, then amplified compared to the first traffic that trigger the DDoS. We can see in the next presentation. Oh, okay. So we're talking about, we will discuss about it in the DDoS trend. It's this is the data from last January 2025. It talk about the largest one is 5.6 terabit per second from Cloudflare, because Cloudflare has hundreds of POP across the entire world, but all of them just coming that give the Cloudflare 5.6 terabit per second junk traffic to miss. So basically, the Cloudflare has some very sophisticated way to withstand the attack, to make sure that clients that hosted on Cloudflare still can be accessed. But however, it makes the system, maybe, I don't know, became a little bit degraded or something. And also, most DDoS is less than 100 gigabit per second and less than 10 minutes. So it can happen. I don't know about the number right now from the November 2025. Maybe the numbers bit much more higher than this. Yes. Okay. This is also the one, the biggest one can happening. So we usually know it by we're reading the technology news. If you are the sysadmin, and I suggest you can maybe using channel like the X.com or the LinkedIn to learn about a news from the certain vendor. Maybe you subscribe for the news for the things like Google, Cloudflare, and maybe you see something like that, because the event, they usually publish the news, what's happened, and how they can manage to block or to withstand the attack. So this is a simple DOS attack, because what they can do is you send valid or invalid traffic to the victim. It's the easiest one, but you don't stop there, because one client and one network only can do so much, because there's limitation of bandwidth between the attacker and bandwidth between the victim. There's always the base limit, the lowest limit. So what they can do is to as the botnet. The botnet is actually a type of computer that is connected to the internet that has been controlled by some parties without the owner even know it. What they do is like in certain part of the world, people are usually connected to the internet. Like they don't really care. They have a desktop computer. They just turn it on in their home, in their office, and without proper security, its computer is infected by the bot program and controlled by one single server. So basically, the attacker just tell all of the bots, "Hey, bots, go together, attack this victim." So a number of bots, we talk about hundreds of thousands of the bot computer across the world. You don't know where it is. You just don't really care. Just do attack to the victim. So the thing is, when we talk about this attack, it's not so sophisticated anymore. We want the bigger the criminal. You also try go bigger. So what they gonna do is they direct a bot to begin the attack, but they try to amplify the attack by saying DNS query for TXT domain. In domain is like evil.com. I don't know, to open recursive DNS server. So basically, there's our limitation for limitation. I mean the weakness of someone who configure their DNS resolver to become open resolver. What it means is that when you do the open resolver, you configure your DNS resolver server to allow everyone in the world to use your DNS as a resolver. What the best practice is, if you have set up the DNS resolver on your organization, you should create an ACL. Only the client in your organization, only that can use the DNS resolver, so to prevent you are being used to do such an attack. So they use it to query and fake domain, and afterwards that response comes with a 4,000 byte TXT record, and afterwards that this response can be sent to the victim. It's like a larger attack to the victim. So there are only few type of traffic that can be used for the reflection and amplification. Why? It was using UDP. Why? Because UDP protocol doesn't need the handshake like the TCP. When the TCP4 connection to be created, you need to use a three-way handshakes. But for UDP, you just send it and you don't expect the response from the client. So you can use a spoof source IP. It is a connectionless. And what enables a good amplification is a small request trigger a large response. And there are a factor of it, that is the name of the BAF, or bandwidth amplification factor. It means the reply size divided by request size. For example, if a small request like 64 byte can be replied by 3,223 bytes, it means you have a BF of 50 times. Like a 50 times, you can one packet, and you get the reply of 50 times bigger. What is the example of it? Which other protocol can be used? Like a NetBIOS 3.8, SNMP version 2 6.3. We're talking about the UDP. For DNS, it's about 28 to 54 times the larger the reply. SSDP 30.8, LDAP, FTP, but I guess this my favorite is the NTP because it can usually has the lots of people don't update their NTP server, and there's some they don't put the ACL on the NTP, and they have some vulnerabilities, and traffic from the NTP can be amplified to the 556.9 amplification. So this is the example. If you see on the Wireshark, it is the DNS protocol. For example, the query, the length is 80 bytes. Standard query ptr.8. Reverse query for the IP address of the Google DNS, and the response for the query is like 372 bytes for the response. If you say give the query 73 bytes, and the response can be like 539 bytes. You can use it when you are using the Linux or the Windows. You dig command dig any Microsoft.com by using the DNS, Google DNS, and it gets some answer, because their answers is like they have TXT record that usually used for the domain verification, because DNS is like a fascinating protocol because it can contain lots of information on it. It can not only as simple as this translation between IP address and the names, but translate names to the IP address, but it can also be used to store the lots of information for verification. So basically, it was like DNS. You can do anything with DNS. Lots of things they can do with DNS, but we can use it, discuss it on the different occasion. For DDoS mitigation strategies, usually this is the thing that you do first time when you set up the server for you want to using in to go to the public. Put it in the public with IP address, and you want to serve the customer in production. You usually do the TCP/IP tuning first. Usually, if you set up the web server like Apache or Nginx, and you use it for the production, usually you will read something about how to fine tune the OS and the application to how to serve much more client. To allow them to withstand some loads, but this is the first thing that you need to do, and you can use a lot of thing in application level. So this some of the usual thing that you will do, and also you will use the IPS and NG next generation firewall features. And they have some DDoS filter. For example, if you put the configure the firewall, usually they have some feature to do the basic rate limiting that allows at least some basic DDoS cannot passing through. And also for the usual configuration, if you want to deploy like a public internet service, you will usually put it behind the load balancer. So right now, basically this, like the first one, the second one, and the third one is actually in the industry, it can also be in one box. Actually, like some of the vendor already sells you the web application firewall, the basic network firewall, and the load balancer at the same box. Maybe you heard the company like the F5 or company like the i5, A10. There are a couple of the vendor that give you the solution just to put to give you protection for your public internet server. And if you put it there, you can create like a number of the server that allows you to serve the traffic in the load balance manner. So what you can do is like, okay, if there's a regular traffic, I can use like two server or 3 server. If there are more load, I can add additional server. It become much easier if your server is in the VM, but it is what's the most people using in the cloud. So they will put their load balancer as a form of the application scalability group. I don't remember the names, but they what they usually do is to use that, and also they put together in the web application firewalls, so it allows them to block the usual attack to the web server. So basically, the web server will have a more easier load, and also for the other thing that not discussing in this is that some of the load balancer is basically function as a reverse proxy server that allows you to receive traffic and forward the traffic to the back-end server. It can be also be configured to do the TLS termination. For example, if you have one TLS certificate, you put it on these devices, and all of those server as a back-end server can you did not to have all of the certificate installed on the back-end, only for if you want to become network more secure. So you can also install on-premise DDoS filtering appliances. It's actually a thing that some vendor, they are creating the device that allows you to do the DDoS filtering, but it was costly, and also usually right now the one who bought their devices is usually the provider, the ISP, that want to give the customer the service called the clean pipe. When we talk about it, and it's actually it requires technical expertise, so it's not easy for the regular customer to configure the DDoS appliance. Usually the ISP, the expert can sell you, okay, this the clean pipe means that if we suspecting some DDoS traffic, the ISP can give you the clean pipe, the bandwidth that doesn't have the DDoS on it, so your server can still be accessed from outside. Other than that, we also talking about protecting against bandwidth exhaustion attack. Usually there are some proactive rate limiting. For example, if you using the software like the DNS as a software, so to make sure that the recursive DNS can function. There are also reactive rate limiting to a lot of applications that can be used. There are also the mitigation strategies if you are the ISP, is by using the technique called RTBH, or remote trigger black hole. So basically what they do is they running this server, this router is running the BGP protocol. This BGP protocol is connected to this one trigger router that has the iBGP peering with all of this router. And what they do is they trigger router will advertise the prefix like as small as /32. The prefix they advertise is a target of someone IP that get DDoS. So if the prefix of the target is advertised to this gateway router, the gateway router will have configuration to receive the advertisement and see, okay, what this policy do is to put this traffic into the black hole. So black hole, so basically the traffic goes drop. So the traffic that comes from the internet that reaches the target will be dropped at the gateway. So it can also only happen. This service is also in the ISP that allows their their router to connect to the RTBH and to allow them to drop the DDoS traffic just far enough to the near to the source, rather than near the target. Because if you think about it, this DDoS source, you want the traffic to be blocked at this point, not in this point, not in this point. Because why? Because the traffic, the bandwidth from this traffic will be consumed. You want to just drop the DDoS traffic at nearest as possible to the source. There's a strategy that you can do if you have some services. There's the DNS, for example, the Anycast that is common, usually implemented with the DNS server. Usually, what they do is that DNS server, if you have a DNS server that's configured with the Anycast routing. Anycast routing allows the traffic for the source to reach the destination. It chooses the nearest one to the source, and it just why it can do that, because the target is also it's also running the routing daemon that advertised as IP. So basically, the router that knows from source to the destination know, okay, this is the nearest one. They will go to the nearest target. So basically, this one, like a 1, 2, 3 server, has the same IP address. You may think there's how come this one more than one server has the same IP address? It can do that with a certain IP address allocation that then the target advertise this prefix to the nearest router. So this is like a cloud-based DDoS filtering or scrubbing that allows them the traffic to be terminated on the cloud POP, and the legitimate traffic as a clean traffic can be configured using the GRA tunnel. So basically, the legitimate customer can still access the target even though the DDoS is still happening. This is quite complex, but it can happen. So basically, you want to protect your service, maybe using deploy Anycast, maybe like for the DNS server. You want to use IPS or DDoS. You want to harden your network infrastructure. You want to do the rate limiting and implement BCP38 that we discussed yesterday earlier. And you want to secure your DNS NTP SNMP server and avoid open resolver, because this is the basic things. If we configure a service like okay, I want to use we have a DNS resolver for my organization. You will put the ACL that allows only the IP address of your organization that can access the DNS server. Okay, I don't want to put any ACL. I just anyone on the internet can access those resolver. No, you cannot do that. You can use your NTP, same one. You can put the ACL on your NTP server. Okay, only certain IP block inside my organization can access my NTP. And for SNMP server, it's actually SNMP server. It resides on your routers, on your devices. So basically, you will put the ACL on your router for your network management server to access your router using SNMP. So it's basically boils down to the level that you will only allow IP address for your organization that have access to your internal network services like DNS, NTP, SNMP. The same one also like for mail server, mail exchange server. But however, right now people are still in organization are using Google Workspace and Microsoft 365. So I don't know about people, organization that still have their own email. Well, this conclude my presentation, and if any question atau ada pertanyaan, kita bisa coffee break. Oke, mungkin ada satu pertanyaan. Silakan, Pak.
Ini Pak. Halo.
Ya.
Ada tools kah kita bisa monitoring apakah traffic ada network saya di attack oleh DDoS?
Kalau istilahnya monitoring, kita sih pakai monitoring yang secara umum kita pakai kalau kita jadi network management, network manager, kita punya network infrastructure. Bapak bisa pakai tool seperti Libre NMS yang paling umum, dan itu kita konfigur untuk kita pasang di semua router-router kita. Jadi setelah kita pasang aplikasinya, kan kita pasang itu add network element gitu kan. Nah, kita pasang situ, kita pilih ke router kita misalnya Cisco atau Mikrotik atau yang lain-lain, kita konfigur untuk dia jadi SNMP server ke IP address si NMS itu. Kalau sudah, dia akan si server akan pull tiap 5 menit, dia akan bikinkan grafik. Nah, nanti sekian lama grafik itu dia akan ketahuan, oh gambarnya sekian, oh bener nih bandwidthnya. Misalnya kita punya bandwidth katakan 10 giga ke internet terpakai misalnya antara 3-4 giga, oh kita kelihatan. Nah, tiba-tiba kalau ada serangan, tiba-tiba dia naik, gitu. Naik dan mentok gitu, karena dia ketahan sama ininya, besaran bandwidthnya. Nah, kalau itu terjadi, biasanya kita koordinasi dengan ISP upstream-nya, Pak, dari sini kok ada traffic. Nah, itulah baru kita pasang yang namanya kita punya Wireshark, tool yang tadi kita bicarakan, tuh lihat ini traffic apa isinya. Ketika misalnya serangan DDoS, kita kebayang kira-kira sumbernya dari mana, kita bisa cari. Nah, kita bisa akan tektokan dengan ISP itu. Itu kenapa kita orang ISP itu selalu bikin yang namanya NOG. NOG itu gunanya orang ISP ketemuan, jadi bisa ngobrol. Kalau nanti ada apa-apa kontak saya ke siapa. Kalau secara umum, kalau Bapak punya istilahnya dibikin whois record di EPNIC, itu kan biasanya ada ini ya. Ada tulisan data untuk abuse at organization, untuk organization IS number ini siapa misalnya. Kan kalau Bapak misalnya organisasi Bapak punya IP address, blok IP, Bapak tambahkan record whois. Pak biasanya bikin namanya abuse at nama organisasi atau NOC at nama organisasi. Nah, di tempat lain juga kayak gitu juga. Dan itu biasanya nomor telepon yang standby, kita tek-tektokan kalau udah kayak gitu. Pak DDoS gimana? Mungkin dia punya cara untuk nahannya atau gimana. Karena itu bisa jadi SLA-nya dia juga. Kalau Bapak beli bandwidth ke operator, ada SLA-nya nggak kalau misalnya kayak gini gimana gitu. Jadi sih sebenarnya itu gabungan Pak dari kita punya tools, tapi ada juga ini saling kerjasamanya juga dengan ISP upstream-nya gitu.
Terima kasih, Pak.
Oke, terima kasih.
Satu.
Oh, silakan. Silakan.
Kelanjutan dari yang ditanya teman saya tadi,
Ya.
bagaimana cara kita mengidentifikasi paket yang dikirim dari DDoS dan paket normal biasanya?
Nah,
Untuk
kalau
membedakannya bagaimana?
biasanya sih kalau kita sudah lama-kelamaan kita kan punya yang namanya baseline. Baseline itu ukuran normalnya kayak apa sih gitu. Kalau misalnya kita sudah pernah sering lihat traffic normal kita, biasa seperti apa, dan kalau DDoS ini biasanya dia datang mungkin katakan dari spesifik port atau misalnya spesifik, mana dari contohnya ya, yang tadi dikatakan, katakan misalnya traffic seperti ini, misalnya tiba-tiba kita nggak punya DNS server, tiba-tiba ada traffic DNS yang besar, tiba-tiba datang ke tempat kita, atau traffic misalnya bentuknya NTP. NTP ini port UDP 123. Jadi ini ada nama-namanya, ada istilahnya DNS itu kan TCP, UDP dan TCP port 53 kalau DNS. Kalau NTP port 123, Kalau SNMP port 161. Nah, itu biasanya kita bisa melihat dari traffic yang asing atau misalnya traffic yang istilahnya lucu tanda kutip. Source destination-nya bukan network kita, source-nya bukan dari network kita. Tiba-tiba traffic datang ke kita. Jadi traffic itu bisa bentuknya nggak normal. Yang normal itu ada traffic kalau dia datang dari orang network yang dia ada, tanda kutip, oh teridentifikasi dia ini bukan Martian, bukan Bogon, bukan apa, trafiknya betulan ada, dan dia menuju server kita. Oh misalnya kita punya web server yang portnya port 443, oh dia betul dia datang ke situ gitu. Nah kalau yang bukan itu biasanya nggak normal, apalagi jumlah volumenya besar. Makanya ada tools-tools seperti ya tools yang lain istilahnya bisa melihat bahwa akhirnya dilihat dari volumenya aja. Jadi yang normal nih volumenya biasanya segini, tapi nggak normal tuh biasanya jumlahnya besar dan tujuannya tuh nggak jelas gitu. Ya itu istilahnya misalnya kita tiba-tiba nggak ada apa namanya, kalau contoh misalnya DDoS dalam bentuk manusia itu kan ada orang di Indonesia yang kerjaannya kayak gini. Jadi dia itu mengerjain orang dengan kerjaannya rumahnya orang tuh tiba dikirimin paket padahal dia nggak pesan gitu. Datang paketnya tuh bentuknya karangan bunga atau gimana gitu. 1, 2, 3 aja rumahnya tuh penuh gitu. Nah itu kan kita nggak tahu, ini kan nggak normal, ini bukan saya yang pesan gitu kan. Nah istilahnya logika nanti dipakainya di situ. Logika dipakainya bahwa kita punya, kalau kita sudah punya tahapannya kita punya network, terus kita punya tools untuk monitoring itu, sambil kita tambah satu persatu kapabilitas security kita untuk melihat traffic tadi. Nah ketika tiba waktunya ada serangan, kita bisa punya pembedaan, oh kita punya baseline kita, oh baseline kita segini, kok tiba-tiba ada ini nggak normal. Nah kita nggak normal itu kita baru actionnya apa, actionnya oh kita harus kontak dengan upstream ISP-nya misalnya, Pak ini ada apa kok ada kayak gini gitu. Jadi kayak gitu sih kira-kira.
Kasih.
Pak,
Oh iya
sorry Pak, saya masih ada pertanyaan. Di ujung penjelasan Bapak tadi mungkin kalau nggak salah tadi saya Pak ya, mungkin di tempat kerja Bapak atau organisasi Bapak tadi dikatakan bahwa yang direkomendasikan sekarang untuk server, mail server tentunya, itu kalau bisa menggunakan Microsoft atau Google server.
Oh yang apa, identity bukan? Maksudnya apa?
Mail server tadi.
Oh mail server, oh ya oke.
Kalau di Timor Leste nih, organisasi atau institusi masih banyak yang menggunakan mail server sendiri.
Oh begitu, baik.
Nah, kenapa harus direkomendasikan ke harus Microsoft atau Google? Kayak gitu.
Ini sih ini kalau.
Bentar Pak.
Oh sorry.
Begitu rendahnya kan mail server sendiri atau emang kerentanannya tuh?
Nah betul. Okay,
ini sekali Pak.
Nah ini karena di Indonesia itu yang saya tahu di Indonesia nih, karena saya pun sudah sekian lama lihat di Indonesia bahkan semuanya orang sudah pindah situ. Kenapa? Karena pilihan orang sekarang teredukasi dengan karena dia sudah punya organisasi sekian lama, dia kesusahan cari orang lokal untuk mengelola mail server sendiri dengan software-software seperti apa yang dulu, kalau dulu ada namanya Zimbra, tapi sekarang namanya apa yang nggak tahu, ada macam-macam lah software-software untuk mengelola sendiri. Dalam waktu yang sama pimpinan organisasi itu dia kan tiap tahun dia harus membayar license software legal Microsoft, karena kan Office dia misalnya pakai apa namanya Microsoft Office gitu kan. Nah Microsoft itu offeringnya adalah sekarang dengan satu istilahnya per orang dalam sekian organisasi itu ada sekian ratus orang gitu. Kita bisa dapat untuk satu orang itu license Windows yang legal, Microsoft Office yang legal. Office itu Word, PowerPoint, Excel, mau di Windows atau di Mac. Terus dia juga bisa pakai Microsoft-nya itu di tablet Android atau tablet iPad. Dan terus dia juga bisa diberikan akses untuk dapat account email di Microsoft itu. Untuk organisasi yang tidak core-nya bukan IT, itu istilahnya udahlah pakai ini aja lah, nggak usah pusing-pusing mikir lagi. Itu yang terjadi di Indonesia sekarang, jadinya kayak gitu. Jadi akhirnya banyak organisasi yang core bisnisnya bukan dia bikin mail server bukan IT sekali, rata-rata pindah ke situ. Karena dia udah dapat semuanya, dapat software legal, dapat office productivity, dapat email, dapat storage OneDrive, terus dapat akses ke Microsoft Teams. Tapi yang terjadi, saya bukan cerita rekomendasi, tapi saya cerita adalah kejadiannya di Indonesia. Jadi selain dulu saya waktu zaman saya masih di ITB, saya masih pegang email itu masih kelola sendiri, sampai pas saya keluar udah diganti. Karena ternyata ngalangin tuh orang muka-muka kayak saya gitu. Muka-muka kayak saya tuh wah ini nggak mau gini-gini, tapi begitu ada saya sudah keluar dari ITB udah diganti semua. Jadi fully emailnya sudah jadi Microsoft semua. Tapi untuk beberapa orang yang beberapa organisasi yang nggak semua kayak gitu. Kalau misalnya terutama contoh kalau kayak di negara-negara di Eropa yang dia punya GDPR dan segala macam, dia punya resistensi untuk memakai produk-produk Microsoft. Kenapa? Ya itu ininya orang Amerika sama orang Eropa lah. Orang Eropa selalu tidak akan mau pakai barangnya Amerika. Mereka selalu pakai solusinya sendiri. Misalnya kalau di Amerika ada Red Hat, orang Eropa pakai SUSE. Kalau di Amerika ada Oracle, orang Eropa pakai SAP. Nah gitulah ada gini-gini. Dan itu solusi yang istilah email tuh mereka bikin sendiri untuk mereka nggak mau tergantung sama Amerika gitu. Jadi sebenarnya sih itu ya jadinya per organisasi ini aja. Jadi kalau maksudnya kalau di organisasinya pasang sendiri ya memang banyak hal yang mesti dilakukan. Misalnya kalau untuk email tuh kita amankan dari sisi mail exchange-nya, kita amankan dari sisi anti spam, anti virus dan segala macam konfigurasinya lah. Ya terus istilahnya untuk identity-nya terpaksa pasang istilahnya LDAP sendiri untuk dia bisa masuk ke istilah email account-nya seperti itu. Itu sih sebenarnya sih kalau saya cerita tadi itu bukan rekomendasi, tapi lebih ke cerita ininya aja. Ya gitu deh, itu yang cerita yang ya sampaikan. Oke Pak, kayaknya kita mesti ini. Oke. Sebelum waktu kita agak terbatas, because I think we will end this in 4:30 because we will do something with the certificate. What do you think? Or we can start the. Okay then.
Ya, agora 3:55 e tá break lá aí. Break 20 minutos, ya? Ok, então está mais falando 4:15. Dia, após você continua a sessão matéria 30 minutos, né? No, ita continua a faz certificado.